Well, well, well. My little rust bounty hunter friend. Looks like you've reached the end of your line. Ah. I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 9 shots or 10? I'll be honest, in all the confusion, I kind of lost track myself. And given that this is a gyrojet pistol, it would blow your head clean off, you just got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do ya, punk? So here's a question. What's wrong with that scene? A lot, according to the rules of Star Frontiers, which is what we're talking about again. First of all, welcome to 2022. I'm going to be doing a few more Star Frontiers, a little higher consistency or frequency of these because a lot of people seem to really like them. So I'm going to start doing a little more in the way of Star Frontiers. Also, to commemorate it, I got myself a Star Frontiers t-shirt. Hope you like that. I'm out here on the gun range with the fellas because we're talking weapons, and specifically in Star Frontiers, how they do such lousy damage compared to what we think of when we think gun combat in movies and TV shows and that kind of stuff. Now, I really wanted to kind of address a big issue, first of all, with this whole thing. I'm talking the rules behind gun combat in Star Frontiers and other things, and I'm going to touch on a few representations in Hollywood, television, that kind of thing. I'm not really going to discuss gun law and whether people have the rights to bear arms and stuff like that. I live in Canada, so it's kind of a moot point for us. We're not allowed to carry guns. But I've always been kind of fascinated from watching Star Wars and Star Trek and all those different shows back in the day. And like the guys would walk around, and ladies, would walk around with guns strapped to their side and ready to take on whatever part of the adventure is going to require pulling out their pistol. And that's sort of where I'm going to leave that side of the conversation. So I'm not here to preach or discuss anything about gun law or any of that kind of stuff. I'm here to talk specifically about guns in Star Frontiers and how, as per the title of this video, a pistol does 1 die 10? Now, for those who don't really know Star Frontiers that well, the interesting thing is Joe Schmo in Star Frontiers, your guy working down at the grocery store, the dude who delivers you your coffee, they all have, according to the average rules, 45 hit points. And that puts them in a different category from like the kind of peasants you encounter in Dungeons and Dragons or other games like that, where it's like, okay, an adventurer who's seeking his fame and fortune and gets his sword and shield and marches off into the wilderness, he has trained up and has many more hit points than the average peasant. But in Star Frontiers, everybody rolls on a scale, and you can have a minimum of like 30 or a maximum of 70, and you can increase and decrease as time goes by. That's the rule set. But according to the way they designed the scale of the hit points, average people, your common person on the street, would have 40, 45, or 50 hit points each. And that's a problem when, according to the rule book, combat for, and I'm going to keep out lasers and like crazy weapons and grenades and all that kind of stuff. I want to talk about the basic rule of like your common revolver pistol does 1 die 10 damage. Why that was always stuck in my head, strangely, is the fact that means your average person on the street can take 5 or 6 bullets if you roll really well with damage before they go down. I was like, that doesn't seem quite right. What do you mean a pistol only does 1 die 10? That's what we're talking about here. Now, to cut to the end of the discussion, it's true. People can take a lot of bullets, and that's actually what I'm going to talk about. But let me just back up a bit, because I remember thinking to myself, okay, when we would play Dungeons and Dragons, we would discuss the round of combat. And I believe originally a round was like a full minute. I'll correct it here if I'm wrong. But yeah, you when you roll to hit, that encompasses an entire minute of combat. So it doesn't mean you swing your sword once, you miss, and you wait 57 seconds for your next turn. No. My DM always explained to me is like, no, the entire parrying and sword fighting and holding up your shield and all that kind of stuff, that occurs during that time, and maybe one of your attacks of the many that you're swinging might get through and do some damage. Oh, roll a die 6 for how much your short sword does, that sort of thing. And if you're a peasant, I think you've got 3 hit points or something, so you're probably going to go down with any bit of slicing combat, which makes sense. I mean, somebody brandishes an axe in a farm or something like that, yeah, people are going to die. So, that I kind of understood. But in Star Frontiers, a turn is 6 seconds. So generally speaking, and you can fire some guns several times, like an automatic pistol can either do a burst or it can fire 3 shots in those 6 seconds. So it is actually, each die roll is like, here goes 1 bullet, oh, that missed. Here goes another bullet, oh, that hit. Oh, let's roll another one. Oh, that one missed as well. So of your 3 shots that you fired with your pistol, bang, 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 3 of them, 1 of them hit, the other 2 missed. Now roll a die 10. And I guess it makes sense from like an adventurer point of view, but we are echoing Hollywood here, where our heroes, the main guys that we're playing, they got to take some damage from getting hit by one of these bullets. Okay, I guess the makers were probably thinking, okay, well, we don't really want people to just drop instantly like you would, at least according to Hollywood. So maybe we'll tame, like, we'll pull the brakes on how much damage is actually done by these bullets, and we'll make it a die 10 for a pistol, 2 die 10 for the gyrojet pistol from my opening shot there. Lasers, now they can be modified, or not modified, but you could slide the slider so that instead of just 1 die 10, you could do 5 die 10, or 7 die 10, or 10 die 10 if you got enough ammo. And that was fine. Hit out the old laser and do some damage, and then fine, that person takes a heck of a lot more damage because it's a laser. But I'm keeping away from the space age stuff. I just want to talk about regular old pistols. Of course, this is a gyrojet, but regular old pistols doing 1 die 10? Well, yeah, that makes sense from those who were writing up the combat. They probably thought to themselves, we've got to have a baseline of damage, and it was a die 10 system as well. D&D always benefited from, we've got die 4s, die 6s, die 8s, die 10s, die 12s, die 20s. There's a whole gamut of different dice we can roll, depending on if you hit somebody with a dagger versus a sword versus a 2-handed sword. So the damage could be more with the dice that were being used in that game. Star Frontiers, on the other hand, just said, no, it's a die 10 system. We're just going percentages. All you need is a die 10. Therefore, in the original Alpha Dawn rules, if you hit somebody, you do 1 die 10, maybe 2 die 10 if it's a gyrojet pistol, maybe a whole bunch of die 10 if you hit them, if a grenade goes off in their midst. So I got it from like a game balance point of view. We don't want people to be knocked out right away by 1 shot, even though that's what you see in Hollywood. Now, to go with the Hollywood angle, I remember a few times watching shows, and I'm going to keep away from the lasers and stuff. This is sort of, because everything is a baseline couched in reality, I'm just going to stick with the good old-fashioned revolver, pistol thing. I remember thinking to myself when I saw Beverly Hills Cop, the first one, the big climactic ending, Eddie Murphy's in there in the mansion of the bad guy, and the villain, has his girl with a gun to her, and I remember thinking, well, it's just a revolver, like that does 1 die 10. So in Star Frontiers terms, obviously for the film and for the audience at large, yes, you're going to be doing, oh no, she's in peril, etc. One shot and she's dead. But I remember thinking in Star Frontiers terms, like, well, what's the danger there? If he pulls the trigger, she's going to take 1 die 10, and then she'll be around, because she's just an average Joe. She's got 45 odd hit points. She could take it. And that's sort of why my intro is sort of echoing the scene from Dirty Harry, because it was like, but according to the rules, the Rusk bounty hunter could get away. He's going to get shot, but it's only 2 die 10 that a single gyrojet pistol bullet does. If he's maybe badly wounded, okay, maybe he'll go down. But I just thought to myself, well, hang on a second. if the rules say you're only going to take 1 die 10 or 2 die 10, and you've got 45 or more hit points, especially if you're like a skilled guy who's been around for a while, what's the danger? Another Hollywood example, and this is on a television show, this was one that really stuck in my head of like, okay, I see where they're going from the storytelling point of view, what the kind of message is of the show, but let's use it in Starfrontier's terms. There's no danger here. Cagney and Lacey actually did an episode in the 4th season, I think it was. It was called Out of Control, and the whole plot is sort of one element of the story is Lacey's son, Harvey, grabs her pistol out of her purse or whatever. I guess she normally keeps it locked up, but for whatever reason, it was sitting around. He picks it up and he points it at his friend, and he's all like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get you, man. You're in trouble. Put him up." Being a cowboy type of thing, right? And she walks in and she's like horrified. "My God, don't point this pistol at your friend." I understand why. Having seen enough things in the news about, bad things that occur in weapons in the home, or it doesn't even have to be in the home. I've actually seen footage on YouTube, some guy showing off a pistol in a schoolroom and he forgot to unload it, and it does shoot through the ceiling. Like, whoa, dude, that's dangerous. And then later on in the show, to kind of emphasize what's going on, Lacey takes her son to where there's an autopsy going on of somebody who was killed from a bullet, and it hammers home like, don't play with guns, kids. That's sort of where we're going with this here. But again, from a Starfrontier's point of view, I thought, but his friend would take 1 die 10. And his friend, okay, he's younger, he's a teenager. Maybe he's only got 20 or 30 hit points. He's still going to be able to take that bullet. This was all weirdly twisted and stuff, and it's sort of to do with the fact that Hollywood, and I understand why, stories in general, you generally have to put down the opponent real quick in some scenarios. In order to do an action sequence, you want to have the opening of Star Wars, for example. All those rebel troopers are like shooting, and the stormtroopers are invading. Couple of shots, and they're down. Another one, very much in Star Wars case, anytime you're firing your gun, your blaster at folks, they get hit, they're knocked down, that's it, it's over. And that is also used a lot in Hollywood, generally speaking. Cowboys and Indians movies as well. That's kind of like a Wild West. We're gonna shoot the bad guys. We're gonna, there's the guy who wears the black hat. He's obviously the villain. We're gonna shoot him, pew, and he's dead. He's gone. Being in a chase, whether it's on horseback or in cars, we're firing our bullets. 1 shot, they're down. I get that. But then I was scratching my head with Starfrontiers because I'm like, but it doesn't match what I'm seeing in the game rules. I mean, the game rules are really set up with action sequences and, bullet time, or not bullet time, but there is time for lots of bullets and laser beams and gyrojet rockets and various other things to be shooting up and down the hall, and you might get hit a couple of times, and it echoes what Dungeons and Dragons has, where a couple of arrows are flying, and then a dwarf comes in with an axe, and you're taking him on. You got your shield up, that kind of stuff. The rules are designed to make it work for the action piece that we're going through, which is kind of echoing what we've read in books and what we've seen in movies and TV shows. So the implication is a single bullet is very dangerous and it's going to kill you. Hence why Lacey is really horrified when her kid is playing with a pistol. And why the end of Beverly Hills Cop. There's a dilemma. There's concern here because the girl's going to get shot. He's holding a pistol to her head. Then I had a conversation with my players. There was some scenario like the Dirty Harry opening where it was like the gun is pointed directly at your head. You're going to die. And we didn't really have a solution for, but it also means you have to roll to hit. And I think my DM had an example with a bow and arrow or a crossbow. He just said, no. If you're pointing it directly at somebody they're not chasing, they're not ducking for cover. If you've got a weapon pointed at somebody's head, except for to roll to see if maybe the gun jams, because we used fumbles and criticals back in those days, if the arrow, you know, doesn't fly off, or if the crossbow gets stuck, you know, maybe then it would not work. And that's actually, spoiler, that's a major scene in Unforgiven. Clint Eastwood has his gun at Gene Hackman, and he pulls the trigger, but it doesn't go off. That kind of thing can happen. And the rules that we used did sort of use that. But I remember thinking to myself, like, however, there's going to be a situation where you have somebody with their head down and you've got a gun at it. You're going to pull the trigger. It'll be instant death, barring any, you know, fumble case. So that's the proverbial gun pointed directly at your face, and therefore why it's considered a thing of concern in a lot of movies. But in real life, there are multiple cases of people being in combat, being fired upon, who survive to tell the tale, and it's pretty shocking. We've got some examples right here. There was a really good discussion, and you can Google all this because there's a lot of people who talk about it. There was a doctor in an article in the New York Times who mentioned that as long as your heart is still beating, once they wheel you into the hospital, there's like a 95% chance of survival. In real life, unless you're one of those dudes getting shot in the head or perfectly in the heart, you're probably going to make it. And here are some very good examples. So, James Brady, he was President Ronald Reagan's White House press secretary. There was an attempt to assassinate Ronald Reagan in the 80s, and James Brady was among the people who got shot. The attacker had fired 6 shots from his revolver. Brady was hit in the head above his left eye. Sorry, let me be a bit grim. Passing through underneath his brain and shattered his brain cavity, exploding on impact. But Brady survived. He was rushed to hospital. He managed to make it. Another example. In summer of 2010, there was a block party going on in Harlem that didn't go very well, and a bunch of bullets were flying, and Angel Alvarez was shot at least 23 times. He survived. February 21st, 2005, Howard Morgan, a Chicago man, was shot 28 times by police. After being left for dead, he survived. And here's a real kicker. You can't believe this. A U.S. soldier, Roy Benavidez, Sorry. He survived 37 separate bayonet, bullet, and shrapnel wounds over the course of a 6-hour fight between 13 men and an enemy battalion. He was shot in the gut, the head, stabbed in a knife fight, and when he was pulled off the helicopter back to the forward operating base to basically put him in a body bag, he woke up, and they managed to operate on him, and he survived. So there's some examples of, like, people can take a heck of a pounding if under the right circumstances. So that made me wake up and realize, you know what, when in Star Frontiers, when we roll the dice for the bullets that are flying left, right, and center, and the laser beams, and the gyrojet pistol rockets, and all that stuff, we think to ourselves, Hollywood has told us you're going to hit the bad guy and he's down. But no, he's continuing because they've got 45, 50, 60 hit points if it's some soldiers that you're taking on. Is that realistic? Because all I've seen in films and TV shows is I'm pointing my gun at you and you're going to die. But that's A, for the sake of the story, and B, as per the doctor in the New York Times article, yes, if it goes right into your brain, you're probably going to die. Though James Brady from the Reagan assassination, he proved no, you can, if you get wheeled to hospital, you might be okay. So I think that really was an eye-opener for me. Bullets do only 1 die 10, and that's not an unrealistic portrayal of what real life is all like. Anyway, so again, just wanted to touch base on that little interesting facet. When I was talking about Star Frontiers New Genesis most recently, I did talk about how other games in the 80s were coming along, like Traveler and Battletech or MechWarrior, and they had much better combat systems that I was really jealous of. I was like, man, how come Star Frontiers is so basic with just like, oh, roll a die 10? And now that I'm thinking about it, that was actually kind of realistic. People can survive gunshots. So, and maybe laser shots are a little different. I don't know. We won't get into that. So yes, there is a Star Frontiers video for 2022. There are going to be more of these. I'm going to ramp up production of them a bit more. So I hope you like that. And I guess until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.